It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce, Michael, and Ivy. I know a story of high strangeness or two. Let's do this.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I am your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
And super producer,
Riley Bray.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. How are you, gentlemen, tonight?
Excellent.
Good. Feeling good.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm always good. Guys, we're in the dogman days of summer here. We're wrapping up BCC jet ski summer. That's right. I'm mixing metaphors already at the top of this show.
I was just thinking that'd make another great summer thing, is like the Dogman Days of Summer. We could do that next year. That'd be
I got to
good.
be honest. I think I stole that from Monsters Among Us podcast. Shout out Derek Hayes. So we can't. I don't
Shout
think we
out
can do
Derek Hayes. Okay, well, whatever.
It's already taken.
It was a good
It's
one.
already taken.
Damn.
Too good of an idea.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, we have another expert episode for our listeners this week, and I want to get straight to our guest because they're awesome. But before we get to them, let's have some quick business up front because it's time for Clubhouse Keeping. As I said, it's sad, but we're nearing the end of BCC Jet Ski Summer. So get your official Jet Ski Summer t-shirt before it cruises off into the sunset. Guys, I can't believe Jet Ski Summer is almost already done. It feels like it was just yesterday that we were all at Schaefer Lake. This is actually making me sad. I'm thinking about it in the moment.
It really does, actually. That feels like it just happened.
I was thinking about a reunion today, honestly, not kidding, about what we were talking about. I'm like, I'm ready to go back to Shaver, man.
Oh, let's do it.
We gotta go.
100%.
Slumber
Let's do it.
BCC Slumber Boys party. What did we call it? I don't
Slumber
remember.
Boys of Summer.
I need a slumber party, guys. It's been been too long.
We are doing it, and then we're gonna go look for Bigfoot. That'll be like maybe a nice little fall vacation that we take. However, when summer is gone, our t-shirt will be gone too. You can order yours right now on the BCC T Public Shop, the link to which you can find in the show notes of this episode or in our bio on Instagram at Bigfoot Collectors Club and on Twitter at Bigfoot Pod. And let me tell you something, Club Scouts. Lean in. I got a secret for you. We're having some major merch news coming up soon. And if you've been sitting, I'm just going to say, if you've been sitting on one of our excellent designs, now is the time to get it, okay? If there's something you've been putting off, you're like, I love that BJ and the Shadow Bats t-shirt. That's going to be available to me forever. Guess what? Guess again.
Yeah, supply and demand, people.
It's not
Got to
gonna
keep
be.
these things moving.
Some things are about to
Exclusivity,
change
you know?
for the better.
Scarcity.
Yeah. Things are going to change. Get into scarcity mode. Get those shirts that you want. Because it might be your last chance. That's all I'm going to say. Act now before it's too late. And stay tuned for more merch news sometime next month. Don't worry about it now.
That's right.
But get on it.
But
Now's the time
worry
to do it.
about it a little bit.
Yeah, worry about it a little bit.
Because it's
Stay
going
up at night.
away.
Yeah,
it's
all
going
of it.
away.
Basically, what we're saying is it's all going away. The show's staying. Most of the merch is going away. But don't worry. It's all going to make sense down the line. But get those
it'll
shirts.
become clear. Yeah.
It'll be fine. Everyone's going to be okay. Okay.
Yeah, get a mug and a sticker. It's a good time to do it.
Yeah, now's the
That's all
time.
we're saying.
That's all we're saying, guys. Bryce.
We're also calling on our Club Scouts to give our Patreon, the BCC, the other side, a shot this month. Give it a shot this month. It's only $5 monthly pledge. You're going to unlock 3 exclusive bonus episodes every month. Plus, you're going to gain access to the entire Patreon archives, and it's huge, like Michael's recent story on St. Augustine's monster and our upcoming Bigfoot movie club discussion of Harry and the Hendersons. You are not going to want to miss that. So go to patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club to sign up and support us, support the BCC.
Guys, we're finally doing Harry and the Hendersons. Did I call it Henry and the Hendersons?
I think it's
Henry and the Harrisons. It's
it's
sort of a knockoff of the original. It's not as good. Another great way to support the show is to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you do, we might read it on the air, like this one right here.
It's by Zombie Shell. New listener here. I just want to hear you read my interview on the podcast. 5 stars. Perfect.
5 stars. Interview or review?
Did I say interview?
You did.
Damn.
We're messing
Let me
up
take
big
it
time
again.
tonight, guys.
I'll edit that one. All right.
You know what? We need
Maybe I
a
won't.
spiritual advisor. We need someone to
do.
help guide us
we need
through
help
this moment.
right now.
Yeah, right
Sorry,
now.
Zombie Shell.
Unfortunately,
I didn't land your joke.
try it
Great
again.
review, though.
Give some. They wrote it. They wrote it specifically just to hear what they wrote on it, and you blew it. So I feel like
And I read
you got to give it
something else.
another.
Blew it,
Yeah.
man.
Okay.
All right. Zombie Shell said, I just want to hear you read my review on the podcast.
Boom.
5 stars.
Great. Done.
You just read it. We did it.
Guys,
Wish fulfillment.
Okay, we're done with this. Everybody put this stuff away. Let's get to why the people are really here. Our guest this week is a witch. Guys, I just want to say there are multi-hyphenates and then there are multi-hyphenates, okay? Our guest is a witch, spiritual advisor, occult researcher, actor, director, producer, TV personality, officiant, death doula, and podcast host of the show Around the Cauldron. Please give a warm Club Scout salute to ZACHARIAH the Witch.
Woo! Ow!
Boo.
Oh no. Already
Hi.
scaring all of us just at the top of the show.
I've literally been sitting here holding my breath, and you're like, we need a spiritual advisor. And I was like, yeah, you guys are chaotic as hell. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, what do
We
we do? What do
We
you do
are.
when you have 3 boys that are this chaotic? How would you get us situated spiritually, Z?
It makes me think of art class, and the teacher goes to the front and goes, everybody has
Yeah.
Oh. That took a second.
Z, I mean, I read your bio. You've got your hand in a lot of pots, and they all sound really interesting. We
Yeah.
ask all of our guests, what is your personal paranormal history, and what came first for you? Was it witchcraft? Was it becoming a spiritual advisor? Was it the occult research? How did you get into this line of work?
I got into a lot of the work that I do now. My origin usually comes from my family's background, but I also had a near-death experience at a very young age,
Whoa.
which led to, I want to say, just you start to take notice of things that you didn't notice before. I've told people before that I feel like when I had my near-death experience, that was when I became a conscious person, because the memories are very vivid. And when I look back on them now, some of the thoughts that I can recall or try to remember from that time were almost adult for someone so young. I was only 4 years old. So a lot of my perceptions of what was happening to me were very out of my scope for that age. And then when I recovered, because I had a growth at the base of my esophagus and it closed my airway. So when I recovered, I started asking, I asked why a lot, the question why, but it wasn't a simple, why are we here in this house? It was more about, why are we on this earth? This isn't where we belong. There's something else out there. And then I started having very vivid dreams, sometimes dreams that would be like those deja vu feelings where I've seen this before. I know this person. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And luckily, I didn't have, my mom was a single parent for a while. She didn't shun those beliefs, but she was also very afraid of them. But she kind of, in her own way, supported them, but we never really talked about it too much. So I got into the occult because I think it was just taboo. And I've always been a contrarian most of my, like I said, I ask why a lot. So the occult just means what is hidden. And a lot of that is illuminating knowledge for us to understand and realize what realm we are living in and what's outside of our scope of understanding. So I started diving into that in my early teens. I was gifted a tarot deck In high school, I started doing readings at the cafeteria lunch table, which was super cliche in my small Christian town. And then I think just going from there, it's just all kept growing and growing. It's like the snowball effect, you know? But a lot of the work that I do now, I think I said this before we even started recording, there's always been this contrast between my creativity as an artist, an actor, a performer, a writer, and then my spiritual work. They kind of just always intersect somehow. And it's like this ebb and flow where when I'm in my downtime, I do a lot of my spiritual work. I find fulfillment through acts of service, helping my community. And then I get these opportunities to do sold out productions at Globe Theater in downtown LA, or like, it's interesting. And I feel very fortunate and very grateful. So I got into the paranormal for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I died and I came back. So
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that'll do it, right? Do you
yeah.
remember what that specific moment was like? Can you walk us through it if it's not too much of a traumatic experience to
Oh, I've told
revisit?
this story so many times. So I'm at home. Like I said, I'm about 4 years old, and I think I significantly just remember being in my room, and I came out of my room because I didn't understand at the time, but I wasn't able to take a breath. And I just
Mm.
remember my mom was sitting watching TV, and I didn't hear her say the words, "Oh my God." I just saw them as if she mouthed them. And according to her, when I came into the living room at that time, my face was completely blue.
Oh, God.
So
Whoa.
she rushed me to the hospital, and I don't remember any of that. I just remember a nurse counting down from like 10 or something, and I'm staring up at a ceiling, and then it was just darkness. And it wasn't like it wasn't what anesthesia is, because I've had anesthesia later in life for other things. It was very much like I was gone, and it was confirmed, obviously, but I knew that there was something had happened, and I wasn't in my little body anymore, because I felt as though I was floating through nothing, but
Mhm.
it wasn't entirely as if it was nothing. It was, how do you describe nothing? You can't. I was
Were you in?
drifting through a space that had a density that I didn't
Mm.
understand. But then I started to hear voices. And at the time, like I said, my child mind was like, wait, these are other languages that I don't know. So I'm hearing like what I now recall to be German. I'm hearing languages from over to my left somewhere behind me that's another language. It's almost as if I was floating around and popping in at these other places in the world or somewhere in consciousness. And
Wow.
what drew me back was just that feeling of like a magnet. I felt something in the middle of, I guess, what you would call my lower back, pull me back. And then I just remember thinking I was asleep. I don't recall a lot of my time in the hospital or my recovery. I just remember the stitches. I have a horrible scar on my stomach now. It looks like I got stabbed. Um, but when I came back, it was just, it just almost like I didn't want to be here, because I felt like I had experienced something that was beyond the limitations of what we live in, if that makes sense.
Jeez. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so much to unpack when you're that
Yeah.
young. I wonder if being that young was almost made you more flexible to accept it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I feel like
I
sometimes
think it
kids have
depends.
a wider range of acceptance.
I
You
don't
know,
ever remember being afraid, and a lot of people talk about how they feel like when they see this light or they're in this darkness, there's some immediacy of a choice that they have to make. I never felt that. I felt like I was choosing to have this like out of body experience. And I was just like, what's over here? What's over here? I didn't know this was here, you know?
Wow.
Hmm.
It was just
and
really, it was beautiful. I'll never forget it.
I'm really interested in this idea of like, I haven't read a lot of it, but I'm familiar with a little bit of the near death experience literature, and so many of people's experiences they describe sort of like just like you did. They're experiencing this other realm where their consciousness is traveling with them, and often the time they're sort of accompanied by or greeted by some other type of entity, or whether they call it a guardian angel or whatever, but oftentimes people are asked if they want to go back or they try and get back. It sounds like in your story, you were sort of pulled back. And I think that's interesting too. Perhaps maybe it wasn't your time, or, because obviously you were so young, you probably didn't make a conscious decision to go back to your earthly realm. Or what do you think about that?
I've actually never been asked that. I haven't thought about that.
Mm.
I still don't know what brought me back. I think maybe there was some part of me that could hear them working on me in surgery, which I really don't know if that's true. Or maybe there was some subconscious part of me that was afraid and didn't want to die. But I never experienced the presence of a being or a loved one or someone on the other side. It was like that density that I was floating through, that nothingness, that felt like a conscious thing to me. And it was like all of consciousness. It's like all eyes on you. It's like that kind of feeling. It's like, but you don't know how many eyes are there.
Yeah.
It could be billions.
Was it darkness? Were you floating through darkness?
That's what I mean. It's so hard to explain nothingness. It wasn't darkness. It was like, I could see
a cosmic
shimmers.
Consciousness goo.
Yeah, it's like I could see shimmers of things. It almost reminded me of being in, like if you could experience being in utero again, maybe that's what it's like, And it is like you're inside of a gooey thing, and you're this form that's just maybe spherical or has no shape or no corporeal structure, but yeah, that nothingness, it felt like everything at the same time. That's what's interesting about it. And I mean, I just, you don't forget it. And I don't recommend going out there and trying to die and come back, but if it does happen, you'll never forget it.
What do you think is the
advice.
significance of being pulled by the lower back? Is there some sort of symbolic or ritual tradition that would point to us being connected somehow through the lower back to our consciousness or something? Do you know?
Well, I mean, in the occult, there is connection to what's called the silver cord. That's one reference that I can think of. I know also too in, I think I don't want to say it's in Santeria. I can't speak for those people and their practices, but I think in voodoo, they talk about too, like the back of your head or somewhere in the middle of your spine is where the spirits also can ride, but also where access is made to that realm. And then in medicine paths or even animism or shamanic practices, there's this place where you can enter and leave your body, or it's where you're always connected to the Great Spirit. And so I think the tailbone or the lower spine, or anywhere along your spinal cord even could really be significant as like your tether, because it's connected to your brain. It holds up the structure of your body. Like there's so much about that nervous system connection too, that I think has a lot to do with maybe some pseudoscience or metaphysics that we don't fully understand,
Yeah. And then this was all ringing a bell. The Kundalini as well, right? The feminine and serpent at the base of our spine. I think it's in Hinduism, maybe. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but like that rings a bell too. That there's something about that. It's so fascinating. Tell us more about this. You said that you experienced an adult voice that wasn't yours. Was that during the experience or in the months following the near-death experience?
So the voices that I heard, it was almost like I was a fly on a wall hearing a conversation. And I couldn't audibly make out all the words that they were saying. And like I said, as I got older, I realized some of the only language I could pick apart and understand was they were saying stuff in German. And I don't speak German, but it was the only one that made sense to me, that I was like, oh my God, it clicked when I got older. I was like, oh, I've heard that before. But then I heard these other people talking. It was like I could hear plates clinking or silverware clinking on plates. And I was like, am I at somebody's breakfast table right now? What's going on? It was very much like, how do you explain it? Do you know in X-Men when Xavier uses...
Oh boy, now you're talking my language. Yes.
Okay. When he uses Cerebro and he goes...
hell yeah.
It's like that. I felt like I was floating and I could go and drift towards something that was happening as if I was there, like astrally.
That
Um,
sounds like stepping outside of the third dimension and zooming
it
around
was,
in the fourth or fifth dimension for sure.
yeah, it was fucking, wait, can I cuss on here? Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Go
It
absolutely.
was
for it.
fucking
Please.
freaky.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. I
Um,
wonder if the clinking was you hearing the like surgical tools.
oh man, I don't know. It could have been. Um,
That's interesting, actually, though. Yeah, and the brain's interpreting it in this other.
yeah. Because you
Did
get influenced when you're in dream states. Like you could hear somebody talking and then think you're hearing a conversation in your dream.
sure,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, that is possible as well. Because I've thought about it too. It's like, what if I'm just crazy and I have some undiagnosed trauma, and what happened to me wasn't real? Because I always try to err on the side of logic. I always have, but there's these associations and connections and similarities that I've found. I've met so many people now that have had near death experiences, and it's like we did not intentionally seek each other out, but somehow we've always crossed each other's paths. It's very strange.
How does that
It's like
manifest?
it'll be like in a spiritual place or a ritual, or I mean, I've gone to other states and just had a conversation at a coffee shop, and the person was like, "Yeah, I didn't think I'd be alive today," and I was like, "What happened?" And I met this girl one time. She died at around the same age as me. She was like 4 or 5, and she had not a similar thing happen, but she just stopped breathing. She had myocarditis where fluid formed around her heart, and it just made
Good
her heart
Lord.
stop. Um,
This makes me
so
so scared. Just all
I
the
know.
stuff
Yeah,
it happened to you.
terrifying.
Oh my
but
God.
like I said, it wasn't scary, and I think there's a part of me. I don't fear death. In fact, I think it's a profound teacher, and there's so much about it that shouldn't be taboo and shouldn't be viewed as dark or ominous or this looming force. Death
Well,
comes for us all. We have no choice in the matter. It will
Well, I think
happen.
one of the great sort of takeaways from the NDE experience is I think it gave a lot of people who had questions about the afterlife a little bit of hope, hearing some of
Yes.
these incredible accounts of, and even the scientific and the medical community, some of these cases where people were gone 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes. I mean, completely flatline, zip them
Mhm.
up dead, and then they come back. It's confounding, and they're all saying the same thing. I'm in a space. There's a light there. My relatives are there, or there's
Right.
people I know. I was pulled back. I could see what was happening. It's I think it gives people a lot of hope that, hey, maybe it's not just lights out.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you feel like you brought anything back with you? Do you feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
obviously you said, you've been interested in this because of this experience, but you feel like, I don't know, it gave you a little extra juice as like a witch or practicing occultist?
Witch juice, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a funny way to term it. I think that it did. It's a shift. An evolution. If you study the occult and you read about some of the indigenous practices, they talk about how you have 1 foot in the living and 1 foot in the dead. Most people who are of the medicine or teach how to journey into the lower realms, the upper realms, to speak and commune with spirits, to work with the spirits of animals, they have died and returned again. Um, Common New Age terms talk about ego death, facing your shadow, but a lot of these people were quite literal. Like if you died and you came back, they would be like, "Oh shit, you're meant to be a spiritual worker and a healer, and this
Mhm.
is you've been called. It was not your time. This is what you are meant to do."
Hmm.
And when you ask me if I brought something back, I mean, fuck yeah. I started having the most vivid dreams. The first dream I can recall that was just so detailed, I was running through the snow, and I'm still a child, so this is maybe a couple years after I had died and came back. Um, I'm running through the snow in this dream, and I know that something's chasing me. And I'm running through this snowy laden forest, and it's like you can see all the trees are wet with snow. and I'm trying to run as fast as I can, but it's getting closer and closer and closer. And there's like this fallen branch that I have to jump over. And I remember it was so clumsy because I'm in this little snowsuit, like a full body snowsuit. And I try to jump over it and I fall. And when I roll over, there is a wolf right on top of me and its face is right in my face. And I woke up and I started screaming, "Grandpa's dead, Grandpa's dead, Grandpa's dead." And my mom, you know, that's how she tells me, like, she said that she had to shake me. Her and her husband at the time had to like shake me awake because I wouldn't stop yelling that. And then that night, after some time, my father's father passed away at the age of 89 years old.
Whoa.
So that's the kind of shit where I'm like, what is that association or connection? And why did that start happening to me? So that's a lot of what propelled me to start reading about the occult, because everything in church, when I used to be a part of the church, said, if you go a little too far into the mystical and the spiritual, then that's not of God and that's bad. But
Right.
you have to go further to understand it. You can't just say, oh, well, it's because God did it. It's like, no, motherfucker, there's something else to it. There's some reason why some of the people I've met have been able to heal people by touching them or to know things about them that nobody could know. Everybody has interesting gifts. It's just like when you're limited by religious dogma, you're never going to know what they are.
Yeah, and why can't it? I mean, if God is all knowing and all everything, like, why can't this be a part of what is God?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why would he create it if he didn't want us to use it?
Yeah.
Or why would they create it? I don't know what you call God, but
Sure, yeah.
the Force, the Schwartz.
I think they is probably closer to it, you know. All right. Well, I want to get into this is all fascinating, and I want to get into your work now in present day. But before we do that, if you wouldn't mind humoring us, we have a game that we like to play with all of our guests.
Sure.
I'm going to go down a list of phenomenon. If you're open to it, you're going to say believe it. If you're not open to it, you're going to say bullshit, even if you're in between or on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rapid fire style. And if there's anything you want to go back and address, we can do that after we're done with the list. All right.
Okay. I think
this is
ready.
A game that we call bullshit
or believe it.
Okay. Zachariah the Witch. On your mark. Get set.
Oh shit. It's a race. Okay.
Ghosts.
Believe it.
Bigfoot.
Believe it.
Aliens.
Believe it.
The Bermuda Triangle.
Bullshit.
Parallel dimensions.
Believe it.
Psychic vampires.
Bullshit.
Spontaneous human combustion.
Oh my God, believe it.
Astral projection.
Believe it.
Ouija boards.
I'm on the fence, so I'm gonna say bullshit.
Alien abduction.
Believe.
We mentioned him earlier. Dogman.
Believe it.
Mothman.
Believe it.
Sheep squatch.
Oh, I don't even know what the fuck that is. Bullshit.
Ritual magic.
Yeah, believe it.
Levitation.
Bullshit.
The healing power of crystals.
Bullshit.
We're living in a simulation.
Believe it.
The government is hiding the truth about Elvis.
Oh, bullshit.
Alien human hybrids.
Bullshit.
Miracles.
Believe it.
Reincarnation.
Believe it.
Destiny.
Bullshit.
Life after death.
Believe it.
Wow, great job, Z.
Right.
Really crushed it.
There you go.
I are you the first witch that we've talked to that doesn't believe in the healing power of crystals? That might be unfair to other witches.
You know, I might upset. I have this habit of upsetting other magical practitioners, but I think it's because
that boat.
I just not
Into it. It's not your thing.
No, well, it's like I tell students that I've worked with, it's like, if it doesn't work for you, toss it over your shoulder and move on. You don't have
Mhm.
to associate yourself with every little new age topic-y thing. I don't even like the term witchy. It annoys the shit out of me, you
Uh-huh.
know?
I
So
that
there's just, yeah.
That's really good advice, actually. That's like no
It
one has
is.
ever made that point on this show before. You don't have to use all of it just because it's there.
Yeah, like what? Do I have to wear a pointy hat and wear all black all the time just to fit in with y'all? No, I don't. I mean, I do wear all black all the time, but but I don't wear a fucking hat all the time. You know?
um, this has been a recurring theme. I don't know why in the past few episodes, but spontaneous human combustion got a big reaction out
Love,
of you.
Mhm.
love SHC.
Yeah. I think because I'm an X-Files fan, I remember the episode
Yeah.
where that
yes.
had happened in one of the episodes, but I also was, I don't remember, I think maybe 13 or 14 at the time, and I started learning about it was a real phenomenon, and it was really bizarre how it would just happen spontaneously, like it says, but it was just like the image of what was it, the person that burned up in their armchair,
Yeah,
and you could
yeah,
see the
just
outline of their
cinders.
Yeah.
body. I'm just like, oh, but I
That
think
was
it
like
has
the
something to do with your mitochondria, right? Like it's the powerhouse of the cell. It like burns up your body. It like something
Whoa.
happens.
Overcharged
I have
mitochondria.
we've
Mhm.
got to look into that to that SHC. There's a whole thing there. I just
This
remember
feels
being a
like a
kid and be
real
like,
Bryce topic. I'm gonna just say right now,
Definitely.
I need
Bryce.
to,
You gotta,
I
That's
need
one
you
you're
gotta
gonna.
tackle this subject, Bryce.
I
Yeah.
need to look into this for sure. I just remember being like, how fucked up is that? What a thing to be scared about. Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, anywhere, you could just
Yeah,
toast up into flames. It's like,
yeah.
what? No
That,
way.
that one freaked me out as a kid watching Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings, and then the other one was like in one of the, I think it was in Unsolved Mysteries, like as they're
Hmm.
in the opening credits, they're like alien abduction, unsolved murders or whatever.
Hmm.
One of them was vanishings, and what they
Oh,
obviously
Mm.
meant were like people who just disappeared, like left,
yeah.
like no lost. And I literally thought they meant like one day you could look down and see your body disappear and you would just vanish. And so
That's like
I
when
lost
you
a lot of
misunderstand a
sleep on
lyric.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lost a lot of sleep. I'm like, am I just gonna disappear? Like Alex,
No.
Michael J. Fox in Marty McFly
Oh
in
my God.
Back to the Future. That one really freaked
Too
me out.
funny.
All right,
Vanishings are
well,
kind of scary because I used to live in Ohio in Toledo, and it used to be had some of the highest cases of missing persons or human trafficking, supposedly. So sometimes if you're out late at night in downtown, you don't want to stop at a red light for too long
oh
Oh
because you
boy.
never know,
Jesus.
somebody could just snatch you out of your car.
I
It's
think
kind of scary.
that's funny because like
Also
that's what I
scary, yes.
should have been afraid of as a kid, but
I
instead
mean,
I also
like, yeah, exactly.
What about getting struck by
dematerialized.
lightning? That's more scary to me than spontaneous human combustion. I think
Oh
getting
yeah.
struck by lightning, I knew a lady that lived on my grandfather's street. She had been struck by lightning twice, and her hair was the classic, like, stuck up all white, crazy hair. And
Whoa.
there was something otherworldly
Oh.
about her. Like, you could tell she was psychic or something. It did something to her. It was really
Well, I
weird.
hope so. Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
Like you gotta get some superpower out of it being struck
right?
twice by
I mean, it's
lightning.
got to
That's
be
a
worth it.
ripoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at
lightning
least change
juice.
the TV channels with it or something.
Oh my God, that'd be so fun. Or all your spoons get stuck to your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, more with Zachariah the Witch. So Z, I was actually in the car the other day listening to NPR, and they brought
Oh,
they were doing a story on death doulas, and I had
okay.
never heard that expression before. And but as many people, I'm sure, like myself, who have lost a loved one, family member, it immediately made sense to me that there should be somebody there to help guide someone over to the other side, or at least through
Mm.
that process. It doesn't obviously specifically mean, death doula believes that there's life after death, but tell us about this work and how you got into it and what it's about.
So there's only about 10 states in the US that allow medically assisted aid in dying. That was the first thing that drew me to the work that is centered around somebody who practices being a death doula. A doula, a lot of people are familiar with, is somebody who's there when you give birth, and it's like a midwife or a nurse that's at home with you, and they walk you through more of a holistic approach to birthing your child. I kind of grew up around a lot of those women. And then later in life, I started, volunteering at the old folks home or the Lutheran home. I'm also, I still have been volunteering at like hospitals when I can. And but I started somehow coming across this common thing about death doulas and medically assisted aid in dying. And for a while, it was only in the states of Oregon and Washington, where if you were terminal, you could go there and choose the time at which you want to die on your terms. And in Switzerland, it's one of the only countries where you can go to a facility and choose to do it at any time. So it's still kind of like taboo to a lot of places. They call it suicide vacations or something like that. But I just want to be clear that a death doula does not administer the medication that helps someone end their life. So I'm not like an angel of mercy or some shit like that. You're there to be the bridge between the person who is dying and ill, their family, their loved ones, to help them walk through the process of filing paperwork, getting the necessary filings through physicians that approve medical aid in dying. And then also too, not every death doula necessarily deals with medically assisted aid in dying. Sometimes they are just there to walk somebody through the process of dying in hospice.
Yeah.
Somebody that wants to die more naturally because it's just their time.
Yeah.
There's even newer versions now going around of people that are using MDMA assisted practices, psychedelics. There's a lot of new things that are coming up on the horizon, but I've always had this, I think because of my near-death experience too, I have a familiar connection to how difficult it already is to be alive, but then to have to be so sick that you don't want to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
And then to have to feel like you have to fight with your family and you feel like a burden. And, people pour all this money into trying to prolong a quality of life that is not really worth living. It's not real life. It's sustained. You're in suspension. That's all it is. Your shell is just there and it's full of disease, So it takes a lot of compassion and empathy. But it's rewarding because it teaches you the value of living, and that time is very precious. So my work through doing readings and spiritual counsel has also been the bridge to that as well. Sometimes I'll have clients who have a loved one that's close to death and dying, and they've connected with me again because they're like, hey, I know that you also do this. Can you help me through this process? So I haven't been doing that for too long. It's only been within this last year because during the pandemic, it's been really hard to be around people,
right?
Like all these limitations, but yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, I lost a family member that was very dear to me, and those last, few weeks of hospice lasted longer. It's one of those situations where you're like, we don't want them to die, but also they're just suffering. You know what I mean? There's just so much suffering, and you are in this position of, I wish there was something, we could do. Or I remember thinking like, gosh, there's all this industry and talk around birth and how to make birth easier for people and all these different options. And I felt like it really sucks to get to the end of someone's life and everyone's kind of like, we don't know how to do this. You know what I mean?
But we do. We really do. The medication has changed. right now it's a cocktail of 2 different medications, and you put it in apple juice, and it sounds, I'm very like factual when I talk about this, so please, I hope no one thinks I'm being insensitive. But
No, no, no,
what
no.
it does is it suppresses your breathing. It stops your most vital organ, your heart. It slows down your heart rate until it stops, and you are unconscious the entire time. So you feel and experience no pain. You go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep, you stop breathing, you die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's way more peaceful than, let's say, when I'm at the hospital here in Pasadena and I'm on the 6th floor, which is the ward that when you're there, you know it's almost your time. And you're seeing all these tubes and all these things connected to these people, and they just look like a shell of their former self.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been in that suspension for years, or they're going through a round of chemo again. They don't have all their hair, and it's like they could be 80 and they could be 30. And it's like they all look the same. They look sickly, they look sad, and they don't know why they're doing this, but they're holding on to something. And a lot of the time it's because they didn't have the hard conversation with their family members or the people closest to them, chosen family, to say, these are my wishes. And it's not about you anymore. It's about this process for me. It's about what I need to do. Because I think
Yeah.
I'm really like, the reason why I have a driving force with this now is like, I've also lost friends to suicide. And there's this stark difference between medically assisted aid in dying versus just killing yourself. Because the trauma that leaves behind when you just commit suicide is severely different than being able to go through a process that is, first of all, legal in 10 states, and it takes at least 14 days. You have to find a physician that approves of it. You have to verbally say that that's the process you want to begin. You have to contractually, in writing with 2 witnesses that have no financial connection to you, sign the document as well. And then you have to audibly check in with the doctor again for a post follow-up session. So it's not just like you go, hey, I want to die, and then they give you meds. That's not how it works.
Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, there's still those people that are like, oh, well, it's medically assisted suicide. It's like, you can't call it that. That's
Right.
not what it is.
Yeah, and I think for me, when talking about like not knowing how to do this, as someone who lost someone who passed unassisted, an unassisted death, just for the family members or the people of like, I don't know how to ease this through, go through this transition. So having a spiritual advisor, having someone there that's kind of like coaching, I guess, everyone through that process, I think would be really helpful and beautiful. Talk to us a bit about being a spiritual advisor. What does that job look like? If you get a phone call, like who's calling in need of guidance?
So I have a variety of clients that I've worked with over the years. When I first began, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I still say that I don't entirely know what I'm doing. I will never feel as though I'm like some yogi on a mountain that knows everything. But I feel that the people who are meant to work with me find me. And it's always very apparent that the counsel that I offer them and the wisdom that I can impart on them from what I've learned through my own journeys or just by my own research or gaining knowledge through reading or experience, it all just comes together. But when it comes to spiritual advising, I'll find people that are new clients who are trying to tap into their psychic abilities, or they have an interest in witchcraft or the occult.
Oh, cool.
I'll have some people that are former Mormons or ex-Christians, and they're trying to just discover a new part of themselves, or they want to reconnect to a higher power. I recently had a client who felt that they're sensitive or becoming empathic, or they're more aware of things around them, and they've started having really intense dreams and visitations. And that was my last session, was like working through that with that person and helping them understand how to protect themselves or how to acknowledge what was going on. Maybe it was some type of subconscious thing. Because again, I still err on the side of logic. I try to find a source where it could be coming from. Like, what stressors do you have in your life? What's your routine? What are you doing day in and day out? You know, like I go through a lot of checklists with people. So I do have a variety. It's just a variety of people. It's just referrals usually.
I love the idea of like someone coming to you for advisement when they're like, I think I have ESP. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
like, that kind of brings it back to being Professor X, you know, like.
Yeah, I really, really, you know, I love, and that's one of my favorite names too, Xavier. So it's weird that like that association has always kind of been there. But I just, yeah, it's so cool to watch some of the growth that has happened with the clients that I've had. Because on my website, I also talk about how I have spiritual advice and counsel. It's like one of the tabs. It's like a consultation, but I use it as a way for if you just need someone to talk to and you want more of a spiritual lens that person's going to work through instead of just a clinical psychological lens, that's a good place to start, because I can just say, well, here's the spiritual part of it, or here's where it connects to things that I know of the occult, or here's where your dream might mean this, or you know what I mean? It's been it's been a really interesting process, but I'm so grateful to have the clients that return. I get all these really great reviews that I'm so grateful for. I just feel really blessed by just being able to do this. And now I've also, in the last month, I've started doing a pay what you can service, because when I started doing this work, I did it for free all the time. And then when I moved to LA, all the I hope nobody thinks I'm calling them out, but like all the professionals were like, you need to charge, you need to do this. And I was like, but that's just not me, you know? So I did it for a time, and I do still have my hourly fees and stuff. And I have normal rates that I've kept on there just because there are some people who can afford it and want to pay. But I've also extended that offering of like, if you reach out to me, we have a conversation, we can come to an agreement about pay what you can. And sometimes I've just refunded people's money, because I had a client 2 weeks ago. I didn't feel like I was able to help her because it wasn't the topic and it wasn't the situation. It was just, there wasn't anything that I was offering that could help her walk away and feel like she had the tools that she needed to do better. So I was like, I'm going to refund your money, and now I'm going to refer you to this person instead. And it was the best decision that I could have made. Which that says a lot too about like some practitioners doing what I do. I really question their integrity sometimes, and their sincerity about why they do the work that they do. It's like, are you doing this to be famous, or are you doing this because you really want to help others and assist them on their journey?
Right.
So I kind of see that happen a lot too.
Interesting.
Man,
what about
I was gonna say,
ahead, Bryce.
That's just gotta, I just appreciate all the I don't know, I've heard people call them like light workers or whatever. It's the people who are in a community who are putting their time and energy into helping others. I know that that can take a toll, man. And we appreciate that, for all those people out there who are doing that kind of work you do. There's not a lot of them, but man,
and good stuff. Thank you. And sincerely, if anyone is listening and they hear me say pay what you can, I'm not being disingenuous. It's for real. Like it's a blog on my site. You can read the information. It's a matter of asking. And that's the thing, is like, I tell a lot of my clients, if you don't ask, you never know if it's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to get. So when people ask me, hey, I'm not working right now, can you take $10? I just need to talk to somebody. Yeah. Sometimes I'll just be like, keep your fucking money and just refer somebody to me that can pay full price, or write me a really great review if you thought it was worth your time.
Well, yeah. I think more now than ever, I think people all over the place are just, I don't know, man. I feel like we're starting to sort of feel the aftermath and the effects of all the trauma we've been through in the last few years, and it's taken a toll on us, man. I know I personally, like my work, you kind of feel vamped, for lack of a better word. And I know
burnout.
A lot of people in their jobs and even in their lives and everything. So if people need, help, guidance, whatever, man. I know I'm not, I do too. So it's a good service, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Bryce, I think I know a relatively inexpensive spiritual advisor we can refer you to if you need help.
I know. Oh my God. I go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say I've always been interested, Z, in like for people who are practitioners of. Would you say magic? I mean, what do you
Magic is
describe?
pretty, yeah, you could say
Yeah.
magic. It's pretty linear. Yeah.
What kind of witchcraft are you practicing, and how do you balance like what you're doing for yourself in your day-to-day life with like the services that you provide for other people? You know what I mean? Are you making
Yeah.
your own candles for example, I'm just pulling something out
Uh-huh.
here, are you like casting spells for yourself and then doing stuff for other people? Like what's the difference between your personal practice and then what the services you provide, I guess?
There isn't too much of a difference between my personal practice and what I do for clients. Mostly because I try to practice what I preach, and a lot of what that is telling people what is your association and your connection or personal relationship with your deity or your higher power, and how does that look for you? What is that going to be on a daily basis? What is that routine? And so, yeah, I just recently made a candle for somebody who's going through a difficult time. But also on a new moon, I usually create a candle or do something new on my altar, which has just happened. We were in a new moon phase. There's things like that. And then I also think, too, it's important to know what your own boundaries are. So if I'm doing a lot of heavy, like let's say I have, I'm doing the death doula work, or I'm starting the process of doing that, I have to set aside enough time or space to make sure that I'm not overburdening myself, because
Mm.
I don't want to take a bunch of clients that want to get psychic readings on top of dealing with somebody who's about to pass. That's too much at once. So I have to learn, and I'm not saying I have to learn, I do it. It's all about maintaining balance. So I have a very active physical life. I go to the gym. I'm mostly vegetarian, more like a flexitarian. Like there's certain
Mhm.
things that I do that I know work for me. And again, it's like I tell clients all the time, in your magic, it's the same way. If it works for you, if it resonates with you, keep it. If it doesn't, toss it over your shoulder. You did ask me what kind of magic I do. A lot of the work that
Yeah.
I use is ancestral work. Um, I really believe in honoring those that came before. I have a very colorful background and lineage of, we're all over the place. So I think I have my hands in a lot of magical pots, so to speak. But most of the work that I started was traditional Wiccan type stuff, but then it started to blend into things that I picked up along the way from the cultural background in my family, and things that also just naturally came to me. I do a lot of dream work, I do a lot of journeying and meditation. And I'm also a psychonaut. I love using psychedelics in ritual sometimes. It's just one of those things, and I don't feel bad saying that.
No, you
It's
No.
shouldn't. That sounds
effective.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially since you're doing it, consciously and
yeah,
probably responsibly.
very much so. Yeah.
Um, Talk to us a little bit about that. Like what as much specifics as you want to get into, like talk,
Mhm.
obviously like Bryce, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like we've talked about Terrence McKenna a lot on the show.
Sure.
Great.
Timothy Leary, like
Ayahuasca,
yeah.
mushrooms,
Mhm.
LSD, ketamine, all those are being used in therapies today.
Yes, they're very effective. I've been following an organization called MAPS, and they're all about MDMA
Mhm.
Yeah.
assisted therapy. Um, I've been following them for years, and I really think that we're on the forefront within the next 5 years of it fully being legalized with psilocybin and MDMA. So there are benefits that come from plant medicines. I think people tend to abuse them because they're seeking an experience rather than using it as a tool to assist them in working through trauma or some type of healing and growth that they need to do.
Right.
Yeah, that
So
stuff's hard.
so I think it's important to
We don't-
say that if you are going to use the plant medicine, and if it originates from a specific culture or a specific practice, you should work with, like, ayahuasca. You shouldn't be going to North Hollywood in somebody's apartment with 30 people in one room and drinking out of some bowl that he's saying is ayahuasca. Sorry. you should be going to an ayahuasquero and doing a traditional ceremony, and also contributing back to the culture of people that kept that lineage going.
Right.
And you don't always have to go all the way to South America to do it. You can find it if you really look for it.
Right.
But as far as medicine or psychedelics, I think there's so many different things there on the horizon where it's like there's DMT vapes, there's capsules of mushrooms that are ground up into powder. There's this thing called rape, which is from South America, where you snort it and it like dilates your pupils and makes your senses all heightened, and it's like it's not what you think it might be. But it's like, I don't do those things. I'm mostly a mushroom person. So it is legal to grow your own. It is illegal to distribute. So that's where you kind of have to be careful about what you're doing with that. So, but in ritual, it's very powerful. It helps you access things where you've compartmentalized them. It helps you break down those barriers.
Do you feel like, do you feel like you engage with, I'm always one of those people who like, I gravitate towards the like DMT entity stories. You know what I mean? I literally picked up a book the other day called DMT Entities. I love,
freaky.
I love hearing stories about other people, not me, because I'm too chicken to go there. But like of higher intelligences that people might experience in these altered states of consciousness. And I'm curious if A, you've had any experiences like that, and B, if you think it's something outside of yourself or if it's something that you're connecting with deep within your subconscious.
Oh man. Well, the layers to what you just said are also the layers of the fact that there's dimensions stacked on top of each other. So if you think about it, what is our consciousness? We still haven't fully understood what consciousness is entirely. There's still so much about what makes us conscious. Where does that connect? What is the soul? What is the id? What is the ego? Like, what are these things that are stacked on top of each other to make us a person? So when you do psychedelics, I think it really does take you into, you know, how the new age people talk about 5D, 6D, like you're going into these altered states, especially with DMT, the entities and beings that are there. The thing that I remember specifically with DMT and experiencing was the tube. And everybody talks about the tube. And I was like, bullshit. And I did it. And this was a couple years ago because COVID, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. So
that's one way to lighten things up.
Lighten your mood, you know,
during lockdown. Hey man, you know what? I think I'm ready for that tube. Let's go.
So you go through this tube, and it's this multi-spectrum light tube. It's like this rainbow vivid color, geometric pattern, swirling, spiraling tube. And it looks like it's like that vortex shape where it's like fat on the bottom, skinny in the middle, fat on the top, you know? And you pour, I remember like your body becomes liquid and you pour into it, and it's like that heavy gravity feeling. And then when you kind of come back to some type of form, which again reminds me of floating through the nothingness of when I died, which is also something weird to think about. You start to notice things either if your eyes are closed or if your eyes are opened. When I opened my eyes for the first time, I saw what looked like a man that was made out of cactus. It was the weirdest.
Whoa,
but it was like this rainbow, like the texture of his skin was like cactus texture, but it wasn't like big spines. It was just like little itty bitty spines. And I later found out that that's also called the saguaro man, which you can get from doing mescaline or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this sounds familiar. Yeah.
But there's like these entities that exist in these realms that you journey to in psychedelics. And why I think that they actually do exist in that space is because if I've never heard of it and I'm seeing it when my eyes are open, and then when I'm done having this trip and I go look it up or I ask somebody about it and they say, oh, that's that. And I'm like, what? That just confirms for me that like there's clearly something that's stacked on top of us that we don't see all the time that's there. Like there is another layer upon a layer that exists at all times.
What did the Saguaro man say to you? What message did he have?
Nothing. He actually looked like he was hiding behind the plant outside. It was kind of like a playful, peeking around the corner and then, kind of blending in with nature and then kind of coming back into full view. It didn't feel menacing. And that's also what I love about these experiences is that I have never been afraid. It just feels, it's a very familiar but unfamiliar feeling, you know?
Yeah,
When you talk about these layers, like
Mhm.
like the stacking of dimensions on top of each other, like, do you get the intuition that they are like rooted in and influencing each other? Like when you were talking about sort of like what is
Everything is a mirror because
consciousness?
even in the craft we talk about as above, so below, as within, so without. So the the theories are that everything is vibration, everything is conscious, and everything is mirroring itself. The universe looks into itself as you look into the universe. So there's this awareness that also is creating its reality. So when we're perceiving things, this is like when people are, I feel like I lose people, but when we
not
perceive
us,
and we when
not
we
us,
You're
perceive,
right where you need to
Zachariah.
be.
when we are
This is when
looking at something,
this is when we pay attention.
when we're looking at something and perceiving it, it's also perceiving us and interpreting what we are. But I think these things on higher dimensions, there's so many layers that they see that we don't because of what dimension we're in. So like if something's in, let's say the 5D, everything that we see is still 3D. Whereas if you
Mhm.
go to 4D, that's the tesseract, right? That's where you
Yeah.
can kind of like look through and see these other realms, but you don't exactly experience them. But it's like looking through a peephole into all these other intersecting planes of existence.
It's
But
like
then when you go to
the Doctor Strange like shattered mirror kind of thing where you're like,
yes,
oh,
it's
every
basically that. And I
yeah.
also find it weird that in media they've been talking so much about this, and there's more and more physicists coming out and saying they figured out the God particle, they figured out how to slow down time, they figured out that there's other dimensions, they figured out how to open portals, they figured out how to tap into a black hole. I'm like, we're so on the verge of the spiritual explanations of all these things becoming science, be fully being explained by science. So to answer your question, yeah, I think that we are being observed, but there's also things that are being observed that we don't exactly know how to perceive just yet because we're not on that dimension. We're not
Well,
in
I
that
think
plane of
that,
existence.
and we've talked
Mhm.
about this on the show. We kind of think that's what UFOs might be. Like
Mhm.
it looks like a flying
Interdimensional
silver disc
beings.
in to our three-dimensional senses, but it could look, we might just be seeing like a slice of the carrot and not the whole carrot. You know what I mean?
Well, I know exactly what you mean because I remember when I first started learning about paranormal phenomenon, I was friends with a physicist who worked at Fermi, which is in Michigan. It's a nuclear power plant. And he was talking about how, because he's an atheist, but he was saying, people take photos of orbs and stuff. He's like, but in physics, the easiest form for energy to take is a sphere. He's like, so what if it is possible that it's the raw energy of a person? If it is a spirit, that's how you're seeing them. And I was like, well, wait, what about aliens though? What if we see them as these spherical things in the sky because that's the only way we can perceive them? Like how
Mhm.
our eyes can pick up on what they are. So it's just
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's weird shit.
I like that.
No doubt there. I'd be interested to hear more about your sort of like I don't know if astral projection is the term, but you're like this. You were saying dream work. Like I'm assuming you're referring to lucid dreaming there, and meditation, and maybe also how that works with like the psychedelic medicine.
Okay. So in dream work, there's a certain level, I believe in using sound and ritual, especially in psychedelic work, where you get into a meditative state or in alpha. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and by using a consistent pattern of drumming, which is also sacred too, there's a reason why certain cultures use drums and have a specific tone or beat or tempo. I think I can't remember which tribe, but they talk about how it's the flapping of the eagle's wings, which is the beginning of the dawn, which is what brings you into the spiritual realm. But I use drumming and sound. I'll sing songs that either come to me naturally that I make up or that I feel compelled to do, or certain songs that I've just picked up over the years that are appropriate for the ritual. But I lead a person into a dreamlike state or alpha state. But before that happens, what I usually do is I create a tea that has a small amount of the psychoactive substance. When you use psilocybin and you make a tea, I hope I don't get arrested for talking about this.
You won't. You're good.
This is all theoretical, right?
We're talking
Right,
about
it's an
microdosing
experiment.
sacred tea. This is I think you're good.
Yeah. So when you make the tea, you use a little bit of lemon juice because it creates the psilocin, which is more psychoactive. It hits you in the eyeballs first, basically. It gives you the visuals. And it also makes you have that sleepy, dreamy feeling. And so once they've had that cup of tea and that's been induced, I usually prepare an area that's outside. I have a fire pit and a nice little meditation type circle in my space that we built not too long ago that's specifically for that. And I lay out blankets and cushions, and sometimes I'll have them lay down and wear a blindfold, and I'll start the drumming and kind of walk them through like a guided meditation to get to the space to begin their journey. And I ask them questions along the way. I don't make them respond. I just tell them to stay inward, because the first place you go is inward to find what needs to be healed. And some people start crying immediately. Some people are just really quiet, and then they want to sit up and they want to move around. And then I give them more of the medicine. Then they go into the full process of beginning the actual journey, or the trip, as the kids call it. So, and that can take anywhere from a couple hours to really get to the peak, or less. And then it will last for maybe 4 to 6 hours total to have like still feel the warm and fuzzy connection and full brain activity lighting up and all that. But sometimes we'll work through things that because you did ask about dreams. Sometimes we'll work through dreams that they keep having that are recurring. There will be some message that they're missing. They could find some trauma that's been buried. They could find an ancestor that's been trying to reach out to them. There's so many crazy things that have happened. It's just, and then when you add this to when people are near death and dying, oh my God, you would not believe how freely they talk about, well, my mom's here now and she's been dead for 20 years.
Whoa, really?
Like, oh yeah, it's some crazy shit.
I mean, I definitely think a big part of psychedelics, like what you learn from them, is more comfort with your own mortality and the inevitability of it all. What
is it that Paul Stamets talked about, where it's like mushrooms are there at the end of life as well as the beginning, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's powerful stuff. But I don't think it's one of those, like, I mean, I'm going to Burning Man, and I know that there's going to be people that are there who are doing mushrooms just to like be free and be crazy. And it's like, I just don't believe in using it for that. I think it is a medicine. It should be respected. It can be a communal thing. Like if you do it with a bunch of people, it can form beautiful bonds and connections and conversation. I think, because if you think of mushrooms and a mycelial network, that's how they communicate too. It's like they've been talking for thousands of years. The oldest living organism on the planet is fungus, you know, and it works through the roots of trees, and trees communicate with each other. And it's like, again, it's a reflection of us in the universe that we exist in. The earth is a reflection of us, you know, so it's
right.
As above, so below. It's all connected in that way.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. And like, you know, when people kind of talk about that mushrooms like hold information or knowledge, but it's sort of like this lock and key phenomenon, or it's like encrypted data or something. It's like something needs to be able to read that information, and the way we've evolved along with this plant is you know, it's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Very powerful stuff. But I love dreams. Going back to that too, I think dreams hold a lot of significance. When I was learning a little bit about hypnotherapy at HMI in Tarzana, I went to a dream workshop where we talked about how to interpret and understand the subconscious messages from dreams. And that's a very like literal way of understanding it. But I also tie in the spiritual, like the symbolism, the ancestral connections, but not everything is always a spiritual response in a dream. Sometimes it's just your brain going, hey, you're really fucking stressed out and you need to calm down.
And that's why your teeth are turning to paste.
Yes. Like, hey, maybe you shouldn't spend all your money.
I think you're just grinding your teeth a lot when you sleep.
You should get a mouth guard. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, it really works, everybody. So do it.
It does.
Z, we are running out of time, unfortunately. I mean, this is another conversation I feel like we could go on for hours and not get bored. But Bryce touched on something a little bit earlier. At this point in time, everyone feeling burnout. It's been a stressful few years for everybody. What sort of, as some maybe parting wisdom to our listeners, what sort of general spiritual advice can you give us in a moment like this?
So with burnout specifically, it doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual, but routine and good habits are really important. You also have to make sure you're getting all the classic things that people talk about: adequate sleep, plenty of sunlight, you're hydrating. But I think the thing that was really been significant that I learned from 2020 and going into 2021 is, what are your limitations? What are you allowing in your life that you shouldn't be allowing? What are you ignoring? The thing
learn that power of no. Learn to say no.
Yeah, there is a beauty in that statement of no. It's just a stamp. It's no. No absolutely means no. But no doesn't mean fuck you. No doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. No is your way of saying, I don't have the energy output for this, and because I respect myself, I am saying no. So, and that's the part too that I think when it comes to burnout, you got to eliminate any physical or emotional symptoms. So if somebody is draining the shit out of you and they're just a toxic person, stop communicating with them. Stop engaging with that person for a time and see if it makes you feel better. You'll probably find that it does. If you feel like you're always doing favors for people, if you feel like there's no reciprocation in a relationship, it's time to start acknowledging it and addressing those types of issues. And sometimes it does start with what we said, saying no, not allowing the process to begin. And the more you do it and the more consistent you become with saying no and giving yourself time and space and reprieve, the easier it is to assess and understand when something that might drain you is about to begin, and you can stop it preemptively. You can learn to go, oh God, so-and-so is calling me. I'm not going to answer the phone right now because I just dealt with my screaming kids. I have a fender bender issue. I just can't do it today. I'll call them tomorrow. So it's like you have to acknowledge and understand and take note of everything in your life that is a stressor, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and start saying no to those things if they keep popping up and they keep tiring you out. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Sound advice.
Brilliant advice. And honestly, I needed to hear some of that. Zachariah, thank you so much. This was a really fascinating conversation. Before you go, where can people find you and find your work?
I have my own website. It's ZACHARIAHTheWitch.com. And I also am on Instagram. It's the same thing, Zachariah the Witch. I'm like, I just did a thing on AMC Plus. I've been doing a lot of stuff. You'll see me. But yeah, I was serious about communicating, and people can reach out to me and we can go from there. So
awesome. And tell us briefly, let our listeners, obviously they love podcasts, about Around the Cauldron.
So it was on a little bit of a hiatus, but just yesterday I was like, I'm getting back on it. Around the Cauldron is a cross-table conversation show that covers topics of the occult, witchcraft, and anything that is an ingredient in life that makes it magic. So there's a lot of good episodes up already. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's everywhere now because of Anchor. So
fantastic. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you, Z. On our end, follow us at Bigfoot Collectors Club on Instagram, at Bigfoot Pod on Twitter. Speaking of podcasts that are on hiatus but have good episodes up already, please check out season 1 of Slate Your Name, my other show. Bryce, Riley, do you have anything else to plug before we take off?
Yeah, let's take our relationship one step further. Hit me up on Cameo. It's on the link tree now. Finally got it on there. Riley too. Michael as well. Hit us up. We'd love to say hello to you and give you a message. I think it's a fun way to communicate with you guys. So hit us up.
Yeah, guys.
I second that.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying Cameo so far, and I'd like to do some more. And you know what? It's cheap. I'll do it. I'll make it worth your while.
Let me just say this though. No foot stuff. All right, everybody. This is an OnlyFans.
I know. I got a foot request. That ruined my
Did you
streak.
really?
I was pissed.
Wait,
I
is
was
that
like, I'm not
real?
sending.
Yeah, we're not doing. I got a
gotten
foot
one
request.
yet.
You're like, it's a joke. It's a joke for us. I'm like,
no, it's not.
Not that
This
I
is
don't
not
have
a
great
joke.
feet,
Not a
but I'm
joke.
not gonna,
It's not
you
a
know.
joke.
yeah, no foot stuff, guys. I know we're Bigfoot Collectors Club, but that's not what this is about. You know, when I start my OnlyFans, then we can talk
Wrong
about
Bigfoot
foot
Club.
prices.
About
Yeah.
foot stuff. No
Yeah.
fee for free. That's for sure.
That's right. All right. Well, let's thank Zachariah the Witch one more time for being on the show. Thank you, Z.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Zach.
Everybody
very
else.
grateful for you. Thank you.
Until next time, good night.
And go get regressed. Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray and Michael McMillan and scored and engineered by Riley Bray. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Do us a favor and support the show and unlock 3 bonus episodes every month by becoming a member of our Patreon, BCC The Other Side, which can be found at patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club.